Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Turles is getting his posse. Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, for those wondering about what might be going on here with this particular premise, do let me explain briefly. First off, we know what we're doing, and secondly, this is an example of us listening to our audience in what they wish to see. After many months of requests from our weekly What If Roundtable live streams, and believe me, there were plenty of them, where you get to say what we cover in the future potentially for What Ifs, we had tons of requests. I was surprised with the level of them in regards to this character, and him becoming a good character. Or indeed, a character worth speaking of. Yes, we are going beyond what the likes of Xenoverse 2 tried to do, and instead, we write the history books to give Dark Goku over here the actual chance to be their own person with their own origin story that isn't just a cardboard cutout of Goku, and something which he could be proud of to boot. Cast off by his peers, left to fend for himself, and then ultimately nurtured by the Heeters. What might have happened had Turles turned good and Dragon Ball Super lore was actually in Z. In the last part, we had the Tree of Might make itself known to Turles for the first time. After picking up a job from his boss Elec, he went to the world where it had been last spotted, the legend, and tasked with bringing an example of the tree back from their contact. Having tasted the fruit for himself, Turles became enthralled with the tree after having been rather skeptical beforehand. With the resources of the Heeters behind him, Elec sought to not only sell the fruit to the highest bidder, yeah obvious, but to make maybe a whole orchard of these fabulous trees in the future. Now, granted, this may not seem like he is turning good based on how close this is to the original with the addition of the core, but do bear with us. We have a plan for this story, and to give this movie entity a true arc of development. It's been a fair bit of time since Turles and Cacao had first met, and the beginnings of the former squad had begun to develop. Their mission was to find the best locations to plant the Tree of Might, to then grow more fruit, to then plant even more trees, and make even more moolah. However, unlike most replanting of tree projects you may be familiar with, this won't end well for the surrounding environs, or people. Like this upcoming venture, Dais, the prince of the Pukimpa dynasty from the planet Kobocha, was pretty excited. The reason for his joy was not something that you and I would likely find to be pleasing if you were in his shoes. No, he was at the cusp of a very momentous occasion: war. While his subjects seemed to feel the terror unfolding around them as the sudden descent of space pirates were apparently mowing through their forces like they were space butter, apparently thousands of them according to reports from desperate soldiers, the young prince though felt that this was his opportunity to prove himself. To him, he didn't see this as a bad thing, the countless loss of subjects. This was, to those who would survive, the sight of a truly wondrous future for their dynasty. Dais would lead them to prosperity, at the cost of many lives. Oh well, of course, the sight of bandits ransacking their world wasn't ideal for his father though, the current ruler, King Yos. He thought that his son was making a mountain out of a molehill. He should not be dealing with such mundane attackers as some kind of horrific elite space pirates that rank in the thousands or tens of thousands, despite the very real observation that this particular variety had apparently been rather successful at destroying their planetary defensive systems. Needless to say, the dynasty was in disarray, uncertain what to actually do. "My liege!" exclaimed one of the soldiers. "We should evacuate you and your family to safety! Those ruffians are beasts! We cannot stop them with what we have left!" King Yos was pretty irritated by this unwelcome yet obvious statement. He had done his best to try and hide his fear, be like a king. Mostly through bluster, like many rulers tended to do in this sector of the galaxy, but it was somewhat effective. He shouted in a booming voice that resonated throughout the courtroom. "Then try harder! Use some heavier weaponry! Spare no resource to hand!
There's no way I'm going to abandon my house because of some third-rate rogues deciding to try their luck. Have our forefathers' efforts counted for nothing?
Dies looked at the king, puzzled.
Father, I can help. You know that I'm a capable warrior. Let me lead the soldiers. I can steer their vigor into something that will be victorious.
Yos, however, thrust his hand in his son's direction in a commanding manner.
Quiet, boy. This is not a behavior fit for a prince. You are supposed to be leading the troops behind the line here. You are not fit for the field. And yet we are losing. Your ideas are backward, old man.
Dies growled and left his father in the safety of his own little throne room, unwilling to hear any more from his cowardly father. He didn't care what he was going to say. He was going to fight, with or without Yos's permission. And as such, he left the palace, taking a small squad of palace guards with him, who would follow him no matter what. When they got to the main point of contention, according to what reports they had left, the trail of smoke was rather substantial, but the red glow looked almost beautiful amongst the carnage. Dies could see a certain artistic quality in this situation. He was so bored living in the palace all this time that he longed for some action amongst the grunts, on the lines, amongst the people, not having to worry about tradition in that moment. Finally, he got to where the fight was happening. The squad of pirates was small, a few people, not the hundreds or thousands that he had expected. Was this it? There were those weird big bug-headed twins, that cybernetic-looking guy and their leader, a relatively plain-looking person. Well, Dice went for the cyborg guy at first naturally, thinking that he was the tank of the group. He surprised him with a pretty competent flurry of blows. This new opponent was, a nice change of pace for Cacao, who began to get slightly bored beforehand due to the lack of any meaningful challenges before this one turned up. The palace guard that had gone with Dice, however, got absolutely slaughtered by the leader and other members of the pirate corps. Dice was in awe on how ruthless they had been, trying not to lose his eye from the target, aka the cyborg. Mind if I join in? Turles grinned at the two evenly matched fighters and started beating Dice into a pulp without so much as a drop of sweat lost. Who was this monster? The prince tried his best, but this pirate leader was just too much. If he hadn't been dealing with the sheer amount of agony that he was feeling, he would have been impressed. Even Turles was kind of surprised by this encounter. He had noticed the difference of strength and stamina in this one. Well, you pack more of a punch than the others on this pathetic little world. Tell me, who are you supposed to be? Clearly someone important. I like important people. They seem to know what they're doing. Turles eyed him and put a foot on his chest to keep him there, a signature move of his. I'm Prince Dice of Dynasty. Dice spat up some blood.
Oh, he thinks he's funny. Trying to pretend to be royalty so we let him go? What do you say, boss? Do you want me to blow him up?
Cacao eyed the boy, taking his admission for sarcasm wrongly. Turles held his hand up, looking seriously at Dice as if trying to size him up. Not yet. I think he might be telling the truth. From what I sense, he does have a certain royal flair to him, and he still has some fight in him. That's almost admirable. Well now, Prince Dice, do you wish to witness something exciting? Want to see something cool? Dice smiled with his teeth all bloodied up. Don't mind if I do, Turles smiled. That's what I like to hear. What a good boy. And when Turles gave the signal to his underlings, his goons planted a seed in the ground. Was that it? At first, Dice wasn't very excited at seeing someone plant a seed. That is until the tree started to grow. Rapidly. Quicker than anything he had seen before. In mere minutes, the tree was already gigantic, tens of feet high. And it kept on growing, and growing, and growing. When the tree became obvious on the horizon miles away, the rest of the military rushed toward it. Some of his father's remaining forces even tried to attack it, but Turles and his goons put stop to that by just ending them effortlessly. And the ones that did make it through and tried to attack the tree couldn't leave so much as a scratch on its bark. It was seemingly invincible. What is that? Dice looked in awe. The Tree of Might. And this tree has something to do with you showing up here? Said Dice with trepidation. Correct. We are feeding your precious planet to it, so it can give us some rather special fruit. The prince didn't react, not even so much as a grimace at this news that his planet was being used as a tool. Good. I never liked the place. Turles crouched and looked at Dice, whose face reflected his apparent apathy toward his own kind and home. I like your style, Prince. I was right about you. You're very much unlike some royalty I happen to know. Dice smirked, feeling like he could be candid with this one. I crave for adventure, not to sit on some ancient chair and shout at people. You lot clearly have some kind of goal that appeals to me. You're impressive, you and your gang. You understand strength. You stomp out your enemies like they were nothing. My father's grown complacent in the safety of his own palace. Turles pondered for a while, clearly interested in the boy's words. He told Raisin and Lacasse to tend to Dai's wounds, and after the first fruit had popped up from the tree, he offered one to the prince. Raisin then looked at Turles with worry. Boss? Are you sure? We don't know how many fruit this planet will yield. That might be the only one it does. Luck might be pretty cross. Worry not. I'm pretty sure this world will provide us with enough. Now eat, Dice, and marvel in our mission. Dice did not object. The feeling, though, after consuming the fruit was amazing. He felt much stronger than any training had done for him up until now. When the other fruit, sure enough, popped up, Turles and his goons also started to eat. After the customary ritual, the leader of the pirates actually seemed almost disappointed with the after effects. Not bad, but not as potent as the last one. Dice was floored. This almost felt like an insult. But he kept quiet, not wanting to seem ungrateful for their mercy. Turles shrugged. No matter. It's still a growth, although a rather minor one. Seems that Kabocha was an even bigger waste of space than we previously thought. Dice looked around. He hadn't noticed before Turles had said it, but the planet had gradually become barren, even more than it was. Like time had been sped up by eons before his very eyes. He realized that it was the tree that was sucking the energy out of his former homeworld. These goons weren't joking. Wait, can't you guys just eat more? Turles chuckled at this naivete. Not from a single planet, my boy. It doesn't work the way you think. Eating more than one per world does more harm than good. We learned that the hard way on some unwilling subjects. The remaining fruits are for trading purposes only. Now, Prince, I'm here to offer you something, and I think you will accept, seeing that your world is now a dried-up husk. There is nothing for you here, and in my opinion, you are wasting your talents anyway. So how about you join our crew? I always have a place for competent warriors. Cacao scoffed in the background. Turles turned to him sharply. Might I remind you that he was holding you off pretty well? No? Good. Dice grinned. It will be my pleasure, boss. Or how do you want me to address you? Boss or Turles would suffice. Dice felt right after saying this, for the first time in a very long while. But before they left Kabocha, after harvesting the fruit, Dice came up with an idea. His last act as Prince of Kabocha, and something that he thought would actually endear himself to the crew even more. You know, my father has a sizable amount of hidden vaults within his palace, with heaps of gold and valuables. It would seem a waste if they were to remain just there. Turles patted him on the shoulder, taking the hint. I knew I was right in recruiting you. All right, lads, let's load up. That day was the last of the Pakimpa dynasty. The king had fallen, though no one knew why or how. and the prince was nowhere to be seen. Supposedly massacred thanks to his foolhardiness and bravado thinking he could take on the pirates. They blamed them, obviously. Little did the former subjects know that he had sold their planet for his freedom. In the weeks that followed, Dyes quickly became a valuable and eager member of the Turles Crusher Corps, and though they became more independent with each planting of the tree, they still shared some of their earnings from selling the fruit to the Heeters, out of respect, especially since they could sell the less potent ones to unsuspecting clients. Hey, a fruit was still a fruit. Elec was more than happy with this arrangement. To him, this wasn't a betrayal. To him, Turles was a glowing example of how good Elec was at nurturing talent. He had a fully fledged allied pirate force to hand who was almost loyal to him to a fault. And from time to time, he could still provide Turles and his crew with some intel, or give them some quick missions, decently paid work to help pass the time in between the big stuff. And one of the most infamous actions was the attack on Planet Nuts that housed the Galactic Patrol prison. This pathetic force had locked away one of Elec's favourite informants, and Turles was asked to, well, intervene.
Boss, Nuts is pretty barren already. I don't think we can get any fruit out of it. It would be a waste of a seed. The prison itself isn't that big either. However, there is that new hotshot in the force named Langu.
Well, no defense systems has stopped us before. And besides, I think that the good people on the inside will be more than willing to help us break this barn down. And by the order of their leader, the Crusher Court started attacking the prison. Going through the defensive shields was the hardest part, but their work had definitely attracted the attention of the inmates, who started misbehaving. The Beans twins wanted the attack to occur precisely during their mealtime, so most of the criminals were gathered in one place and ready to strike in unison, and easy for them to get out. This allowed Turles and his crew to split the attention of the personnel and then break the wall of the compartment holding Elec's snitch. But during their escape, there was one more person that attracted the attention of the Crusher Corps leader, a certain hulking brute who was helping their cause a little bit too eagerly. "Hey, you, big guy! I think I recognize your face from somewhere," Turles shouted at the man fighting against two patrol guards.
You have a good eye, sir. Name's Amond. I had the death sentence on over 12 systems, don't you know?
Ah yes, Turles definitely did remember seeing wanted posters. "Listen, I could use someone like you. Do you want to leave this place behind?"
Oh, gladly. I like your style.
Amond roared in triumph, after crushing the skull of one of the patrollers. And so Amond was the last core member of the Corps. I mean, yes, there were several other troops, but the twins, Cacao, Dyes, and Amond were the commanding core. And this newest member was so fiercely loyal to their leader, in fact, that he created the moniker
Mighty Turles.
The captain, he tolerated it, as it was mildly amusing. Throughout the years, they became quite notorious, and even more independent from Elec. But still, Turles didn't want to usurp him. Not yet, at least. They needed each other, if they wanted to take out Frieza one of these days, and especially since the Heeters told him that they had more than enough people under their wing willing to take out the Space Emperor. Every little helps. And then, during their last conversation, Elec even mentioned a particularly talented sharpshooter he had to hand, that he was grooming. But he had proved to be a bit of a lone wolf, even more so than Cacao used to be. According to Elec, he was unfit for Turles' crew, at least for now. But as always, the Heater leader did not come to our hero with empty hands. While the sharpshooter wasn't available at his disposal at the moment, the intel he was given was even more precious. Supposedly, there was a planet that could yield very good results for the Tree of Might. And not only that, but apparently 4 Saiyans were noted to be recently living on that planet. And better yet, Frieza had not so much as batted an eyelid toward it. One had lived there for years, while the other 3, well, apparently, the only survivor had been Prince Vegeta, huh? And who gave him a beating? This is rather interesting. Turles walked towards the navigation console. Reason?
Yeah, boss?
Set a course to planet Earth, or however you pronounce it. I think we might have a new recruit, and a jackpot for the Tree of Might. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Do you feel that the Goku effect might be strong enough to stop Turles' wicked ways? Or will there be more to this tale than you think? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!